We're going to do things out of order a little bit this week because there's so much happening, and I think we have to talk about Dynamite right here at the top. It happened last night as we are recording, and before Dynamite, I was thinking, what are the topics for the drive-thru this week? And one of them, because we didn't go through any of the media scrum audio, I was like, apparently Tony talked about how he used to chat online with Luthez when he was a kid.
I'm sorry, what now?
Apparently he used to chat online with Luthez. He used to chat online with Luthez when he was a youngster. And
No, okay. You know what? I can't take this out of him because I remember hearing that Luthez was doing something, answering questions on what was it at that time? Was that even before like wrestling classics or whatever board of some description? Or
he definitely did stuff on wrestling classics. I don't know if he was doing stuff on other, before that, just other random wrestling chat rooms on AOL.
But yeah, I don't think it was like person to person.
Charlie, sign me up.
Yeah, well, yeah, he was answering questions or writing little pieces about the day. But go ahead.
But we're not even going to talk about that right now because we have to talk about last night's Dynamite.
Where apparently he didn't learn how to take a bump from Luthez.
I've said it before, I have to say it again, another banner episode of AEW Dynamite. This may be the episode of all time. There's a lot to talk about. Before we go any further and review the matches, independent of the quality of the show itself, let's talk about the audio. Tony Khan put out a tweet saying it was an issue on TBS's side, their partner at TBS. Threw them under the bus, but it was very nice the way he phrased it. What did you think about the audio and how unwatchable is that show if the entire audio track is fucked up?
Well, here's the thing. There were so many different types of audio problems or communication problems between, whether it be, again, it could be several things. Could have been bad communication between the truck and the announce team, or could have been bad communication between the broadcast of the network and the truck. But there were so many different types of audio problems. I know a few of them cannot be blamed on TBS because I knew what they were. Apparently, you can't, when at the opening of the program, and this is a good place to put this because I was going to mention it also, when you've got the WWE on this fucking roll, this steamroll that they're on with these big buildings and these sellouts and the big crowds and the big stars, the big shows, whatever the fuck. Even when Tony is in one of these NBA arenas, and we'll probably talk on the experience this week, one of the listeners out there who's a data scientist of some kind sent me an analysis that we don't have time for today, but it's fascinating. But even when they're in an NBA arena, but the average building that they're running is 75% empty, they're at least coming from a place that's heard of in a venue that people would think is somewhat professional. And even if the average person doesn't look for the crowd shots, right? The average person is not waiting for the wide shot to see how they have to disguise they haven't got any people in the building. We do that because we're industry professionals. But they opened this program coming from Daly's place in Jacksonville. It looked like a Nickelodeon game show set. This is the worst time.
It looked better with no fans. They shot it better with no fans.
Yeah, well, but they almost did it again here. They can't shoot it with some fans. But everybody made a big deal out of they were advertising for seat fillers or whatever, and then they said, well, we're giving away free tickets to people in the military or the first defenders or first responders, whatever they said, but they advertised locally. We need 50 people to come and be seat fillers, whatever you're affiliated with. But so anyway, it looks like the game show set. It's just so small. Why did they have to be there? Did another building fall through? Because they own that, right? Or that was their home
No, they own it. It's next to the football stadium. But I guess the other question is, why do they have to shoot it so that the stage is behind the camera or in front of the camera?
Do we know how many people were there, though? Because they didn't ever really turn anything around. So were there any people there? Where are the people, Jerry?
I want to say it was in the neighborhood of 2,500 people. Let me double check.
God damn, did you see 2,500? They could have shown 1,850 more people.
Well, that's the thing. I didn't see that many people, and that's weird that they don't shoot the crowd at all there if there's all these people behind on the other side of the camera.
Dipshit, the plumber had to go out in the crowd and fight, but they kept it real tight. But anyway, it looked like, what the fuck? But the cold open of the thing, or the first video you see, to address what you were talking about before I went off on a tangent. Here come the SUVs. It's not Roman Reigns, folks. It's the Buckaroos and Cody and Jungle Jackoff. And that was the first example of an audio problem, because they have I'm pretty sure they pre-taped this, but whether they were doing it live or whether they pre-taped it, the audio that you were hearing was the audio that was being played to the crowd when they were looking at it on the screen so it was from the arena. It sounded hollow. You could hear the fans murmuring, right? But when they're actually talking, you can't hear. They're not feeding the program audio. So either the truck wasn't getting it, the truck wasn't sending it. I don't know how that TBS could have made the mistake to separate on their end, to separate the goddamn program audio with the microphone on the camera that shot this thing, and we're just hearing the PA playing on the screen in the arena. That's what how does TBS do that? So, but there was another time in one of the matches where the announcers were speaking, and suddenly, bam, they were in picture in the middle of Tony Schiavone's sentence. Now, that could have been...
That was hysterical, too, because that was right when, the audio may be getting a little bit better, and then boom!
Yeah, boom! And then it cut out completely. But that could have been the truck not being able to talk to the announcers suddenly for some reason, or that could have been master control at the network not communicating to the truck to tell the announcers, but it's not supposed to be done that. There's multiple checkpoints that you would have to go through that would have to fail for all of those things and then there was another point, and I was fast forwarding through some of this fucking in the middle because god damn, you'll hear about it, but they showed a picture on Twitter and people were talking about it. They went to picture in picture in a commercial break and forgot to put the picture in the picture. So they had the commercial playing in the big part, and in the little part, it just said live. And again, if they're using, unless somebody at Master Control at TBS just, has walked in there from a homeless shelter and it's his first day on a job.
Who's on the board tonight? Oh, it's Crazy Jerry. Oh,
yeah.
No.
Oh, Jesus Christ. We need to promote him and get him out of here. But no, it had to be, they're in Daly's place. It's not an NBA arena. Did they bring the full setup? Did they bring the normal crew, a technical crew? Did they pick up some freelancers? I don't know what to put, but I'm trying to think of some of because I made notes of them throughout the show, but there was a number of, there was the one where after all the other girls engaged in all of the other girl things that they did, Serena comes out, sits down, oh my God, it's Serena. And she sits down on the stage and she talks directly into the handheld fucking camera to cut this meaningful statement about why she's back, and they're still playing one of the other girls' music so loud you can't hear a goddamn thing she says unless you're a lip reader. You don't know what the fuck and then the announcers are trying to tell you what she said. And then
you can't hear them either, so it doesn't help.
Well, yeah, but the one plus was most of the time you couldn't really hear sock face at all. And then there was another time that, especially when the people quieted down, that the announcers were goddamn thunderous. And then it was a tremendous moment for Plumber Moxley at the end, because he also tried to cut a promo into the handheld camera, but the only thing, fortunately, that anybody could hear was, "You're a fucking dead man. We just don't know who's dead."
Can I do my impression of Moxley's promo earlier in the show?
I wish you would.
Dope. Couldn't hear anything. Heard the fans.
Well, I may have heard it better than you, because it almost sounded to me like every other Moxley promo. It didn't make any fucking sense, but there was some words in there. But that's the thing, is this, and I mean, we're going to get into more of the visual aspect of this. Was the worst possible show for them to present at the worst possible time when we talk about, because the first thing you saw live in the arena, besides the fact that the arena is a goddamn, I mean, the fucking Batman amphitheater at Six Flags Kentucky Kingdom that we used to run OVW shows in looked better than this. But the first thing you saw was fucking pockets being thrown out of the entranceway by Trent. So you've got an amateur location, or a minor league location with an amateur television production, and you can't hear the first thing they present, and the first talent that you see on the other program, you might see Roman Reigns coming out, or you might see goddamn Cody coming out, or you might see fucking Punk or McIntyre, or Logan Paul, or goddamn who knows what fucking The Rock. Did I mention him before? This is Trent and Pockets, and they've just crowned a new world champion, and we see two indie guys that got a lucky fucking friend hire rolling around in a goddamn amusement park arena. It's just the dichotomy, the paradox, and a paradox is not a place you park two boats. It's amazing. Your thoughts?
My thoughts on the opening of the show up to this point?
On the amateurishness overall, and could they have picked a worse time to present such amateurishness?
There it is. Now, I know not every pay-per-view is WrestleMania, but this was the first Dynamite after a big pay-per-view. One where AEW fans seem very happy with it. New world champion, they love the Osprey match. There were things they really loved. Jack Perry's return. For some people, that was a big deal. They followed it up with a show opening with the Bucks, who are ratings poison. Can't even hear them. Right away, it becomes apparent the audio's fucked. And then they go into the building. Orange Cassidy, if it was him on his own, it would be one thing, because his opponent could have credibility. It was him in the middle of the best friends falling apart. Like anyone gave a shit. And by the way, it turned out they weren't even best friends. The guy said he didn't even like him, or whatever the fuck.
Yeah, I always thought you were a piece of shit.
What?
A fucking fake friend and a backstabber.
You could have said this 4 years ago, Chuck.
Yeah.
So yeah, no, this was an amateurish way to open. And then, I mean, we'll get to the review, but the world champion was put in a long competitive match against a guy who never wins. But let's go to the actual review. I apologize for going forward.
What, you apologize for everything from here on out going forward is going to be rotten, or you apologize for going too far ahead of the topic?
That, and also for the fact that you had to watch this show. I'm so sorry. Accept my apologies.
But we take it upon ourselves. We're like those old religious pilgrimage motherfuckers charging up a goddamn hill, whacking each other with chains and shit. We suffer so you don't have to.
Like all those religious pilgrimage people.
Yeah, whatever. I just have the visual in my head of they're beating themselves over the back with the chains while they're walking up a hill to jump off a cliff. I don't know where they're fucking going.
Why do you have this vision in your head?
Because we're punishing ourselves, but they're doing it for some greater purpose, for a higher power. Potentially not Adam Cole.
Well, let's jump right into the volcano, AEW Dynamite.
Well, and that's what we first saw was they play, Jane, you're playing a game. And all of a sudden, Pockets is thrown rolling out of the entranceway by Trent himself of the, of Cookie Bacon Mother. Minivan driving fucking floozy that she is.
Well, they don't have to call her a floozy. She's a
she's coming. She's
minivan driving mom. I guess
she's coming out on TV, parading her cookies around. Brian, what would you call her? Anyway, spreading her baked goods all over.
All right. Enough here. Her son just turned on her. She's having a rough time.
Giving people goddamn diabetes right and left. Typhoid Mary, son of a. Anyway, so he apparently has been beating up Pockets, and then he beats up Pockets a little more, and then Pockets rolls up into kind of like a fetal position in the middle of the ring where he's going to stay for a while. Because then Trent calls out Muffin Top Taylor, his friend when the unfortunate wardrobe and the hair that looks like he got a free bowl of soup with that haircut, and the fucking rosacea upon his face. Or is he just embarrassed to be a part of this? We don't know. And he shuffles out, and they do a dramatic indie wrestling verbal exchange about how the other was this fucking guy down here, he fucking took advantage of us. He was supposed to be the mascot. Now he's the big deal. And fucking that's what Muffin Top said. You know what? I always thought you were a fucking son of a bitch. Well, at first Trent did the big build up and he wanted a hug is what he wanted. And he's cut this whole promo while Pockets is just curled up at his feet. What I've seen people be hit by cars and goddamn their adrenaline kicked in enough to be able to shuffle off the goddamn motorway, right? And this fucking guy's just laying there quivering. Would he hit him in the head with a fucking pipe? Anyway, and he wants the hug, Trent does. And there's Muffin Top, who's been stood there, as they say over across the pond, like the fucking parking lot attendant wandered in. Just what this looks so amateur. And he's nobody, and nobody cares for him. Because he ain't got nobody. Nobody cares for him. Nobody cares for you suck. So he wants the hug is what he wants. God damn it. And that's when Muffin Top said, he reaches his arms out and he say, I always thought you were a piece of shit. And he hits Trent. And Trent rolls out and Muffin Top gets the microphone and says, they won't clear me to wrestle. Why? Do they actually have some standards there? But he says they won't clear me to wrestle in the ring, but I want a fight in the parking lot. What fucking sense does that make?
Is it because of his skin condition?
I wouldn't want to touch him, but I didn't want to touch him before he looked like he does now. I don't know what the fuck's going on with him. Maybe he just gets sunburned a lot, but he's always looked like he's fucking sandpapered himself. But why is he's not been wrestling? I avoid him at all costs. But if he's been injured and he's just been living on Tony's dime, how would he be able to not get cleared to wrestle, but he can be cleared to have a parking lot extravaganza of some kind?
Because it makes no sense. Because there are no rules and regulations in AEW.
Well, but no, if he's really hurt, are they going to say, well, what if you do it in the parking lot, we're not responsible for real? Like, you got to sign a waiver. If you hurt yourself, you're on your own for real? I don't know what the fuck. Anyway, Trent left, but the lead of the story is Pockets laid there for 4 fucking minutes without, and then old Muffin Top and I think others may have come to attend to him. What the fuck happened to him in the back? People goddamn recovered from fucking spinal surgery quicker than that.
See, I think it's brilliant long not even long-term, but show-long booking that you're overlooking. Hey, that rhymes. I think that because Orange Cassidy clearly was killed by whatever happened to him, he wasn't able to save Tony Khan, his best friend, later in the show.
No, because there's footage of after the show went off the air out there on Twitter where they're shuffling Tony out and Pockets is fucking droop-shouldered, walking right on his own power right back behind him.
Oh, okay, so he's fine.
Yeah, he's fine.
But your paper is fucked.
Right. And that's when the plumber did his the promo in the back, and maybe it's because they're shooting it in an oil drum. I don't know. But the audio, but I think I've come to the conclusion, I think some of the fans believe in this guy as being a badass guy. Oh, Moxley, a deathmatch guy.
Death Jitsu.
There you go. I sound more like Cartman, don't I?
I don't know what you were doing.
I don't know. I don't. He don't know what he's doing.
That's right.
And
don't you forget it, because I'll forget it.
Well, we'll remind him. We'll keep reminding him. Point is, apparently some of the fans have never known or worked with real tough guys and badasses in the way of the physical arts, and so they fall for the way that he talks and ignore the way he looks and his work in the ring. But God damn it, all right. So are you ready for the new world champion, Brian? Which one you're supposed to say? The American one, the hometown AEW World Champion, not the more prestigious IWGP other company World Champion that's going to main event later on.
That's me, yeah.
Swerve Strickland wins the world title on pay-per-view. And he is arguably the most popular guy in the company, right? Except now maybe for Osprey, who's now, of course, in the top heel group. But still, he just won the world title. Wouldn't you think there would be some? I mean, the plumber won the IWGP title and got to talk about it. And Swerve wins the title on pay-per-view, and Nana introduces, here's your new world champion, and he comes out and has a match with Kyle Felcher. At least he's wrestling heels now, so they've acknowledged that he's supposed to be a babyface, but I wrote at the time, as soon as I saw what the match was, I said his first appearance as champion, and I guarantee you it's going to take him 20 minutes to beat a Q-tip with arms and legs. And I was wrong, Brian. It only took him 15. And at one point, because I mean, this match, and they're going to go out there and have a banger. It was competitive all the way again. I don't care if Mighty Joe Young or Cheetah can do all the moves perfectly unless they are pushed on a consistent basis as being a threat to the singles world title, of which there should only be at least only 2. And they got about 4 or 5 here, but nevertheless. Then, no. What the fuck? And at one point during the match, it was so important, the new world champion's first, appearance on television, where he didn't say a goddamn word. He just got right into getting his ass kicked by one of the members of the Don Fallis family that just got his ass kicked by Will Ostrich. While Felcher's kicking a shit out of Swerve, they go split screen to the Buckaroos and Jungle Jackoff and O'Cody in the back, walking into Tony Khan's office. This is Tony's name on the door, boom. After they've established on camera the past couple weeks, he sits at Gorilla. And it looked like 3 kids playing dress up and their Japanese adult chaperone. And they go to this huge story in the middle of the new world champions match. And finally, the new world champion hits his double stomp off the top rope finish onto the goddamn guy and covers him and gets a 2 count. And then backs up, and while Felcher sits up on his ass, Swerve runs and kicks him, and it was a wonderful looking kick. Might ought to use that for a high spot sometime every once in a while. But he runs and he kicks him in the head while the guy's sitting on his ass from behind. What a babyface fucking finish. And that got him the 3 count. So he went one move too far. And as I said, it only took him 15 minutes to beat a middle card. The guy's not even the top guy in his own fucking group. Your thoughts?
You're being too hard on him. I mean, it's not his fault how he's booked, but he's better than you're giving him credit for. And you say,
I'm not saying he's not.
Q-Tip. He's 6'5", and it appears that he's putting on size. The problem is,
he looks ridiculous.
Well, the problem
in the way they presented him and his haircut.
Well, the bigger problem, I don't think those are the problem. I think the problem is he never wins. So now you have the world champion's first title defense after all this other nonsense already on the show. And it's against a guy who never wins, who could have a long competitive match with him, and it goes forever. They should have opened with Swerve and given him a quick win and let him celebrate with the fans while Nana dances.
And talk to him.
Simple. Yeah.
And talk to him. He's their leader now. He didn't even get a chance to say thank you to everybody, did he? But anyway, I agree with what you said, and you disagreed with what I was agreeing with you with. I'm not saying that Kyle Felcher in another goddamn situation couldn't be a top guy. I'm saying the way he's been so far, he ain't, and he's not even the featured guy in his own group, and he's kicking the shit out of the new world champion the first time we see the new world champion. Is what I'm saying to you.
I agree with that.
All right.
But I can't go too crazy about a ridiculous haircut. It is wrestling.
Well, then it needs to be less childish ridiculous and more Pampiro Furpo ridiculous. I don't know but anyway, I'm not a hairstylist, damn it. But that's going to be next on A&E. We'll talk about this at some future point, but they've devolved Most Wanted Treasures. The season debut had become 2 hours of going over to guys' houses and looking through boxes of their tights. I can't wait to see WWE's Most Wanted haircuts when they follow a different superstar every day to the goddamn hair salon to get a fucking haircut.
Join Brutus Beefcake as he goes strutting and a-cutting every Thursday on A&E.
But only if Missy lets him. So then speaking of letting somebody do something, Thunder Rosa and Deonna Purrazzo, who I thought were both baby faces, argued with each other and yelled at each other, and 2 outlaw indie wrestlers posing as stagehands had to get in between them in an awkward fashion. Hold on. Son of a bitch.
The hell was that?
There's a gnat flying around in front of me. He's gone to fucking Nat Boot Hill now.
What are you going to do, though? You have to wash your hands, don't you?
I just wiped
You're
them
going
off
to continue
on
on with bug
pants.
guts? Okay.
I wiped them off on my pants. I stomp on these. Well, the son of a bitch is still here. God damn it. I thought I was seeing spots in front of me. There you are, bug guts. Thought I was seeing spots in front of my eyes. I was going to have you call a doctor. Anyway, the audio was so bad on this interview that I don't know what they were mad about, but they seem to have a strong disagreement. A big difference of opinion here.
Now, this is at the point, though, you would think, you may have the times. This was what, 30 minutes, 35 minutes into the show, maybe a little longer?
Mm-hmm.
Wouldn't someone in the back at that point have noted we're having an issue, we probably shouldn't have a lot of talking?
Well, no. Somebody should have said, we're having an audio issue. We better fix this motherfucker. That's what we...
Don't worry, Shad's here.
Oh, goddamn. I thought it was the fucking guy from Go Fight Live, whatever that fucking clown's name was. Because when we I was definitely the one that was screaming, "You stupid motherfucker," while he was plowing around on his hands and knees behind the fucking equipment table that time down in beautiful Fort Lauderdale, trying to figure out why our Ring of Honor pay-per-view audio wasn't synced up. What was his goddamn name? I'd like to be able to call it now so I could say 12 years after the fact what a fucking moron he was. And then he stepped on the goddamn power strip and threw us all off the air. But I'm screaming, fix that shit! What the fuck? Why weren't they saying what is going on? Who is responsible for this? And how can it be rectified?
Should they have played into it? I mean, considering what they were doing, should they have Jack Perry and the Bucks take over the truck and fuck with the audio? At least it's an explanation, right?
But again, how is it? It's multiple different things going on. How is someone not troubleshooting this? I don't. Anyway, speaking of troubleshooting this, they followed the girl's interview and argument that you couldn't hear with something that I wish we couldn't have seen. Now, I know you may be a fan, Brian, because Anna Jay was involved against Stardom's Mira Shirakawa with Maria May in her corner. But this early in the show, they can't be serious. What are the quarter hours going to look like? We don't even know yet, folks. They're not out yet.
I'm convinced, although poorly executed, that they booked this week's show for us. A long Anna Jay match against this new girl with the bosom. That was for me. They booked that for me. And then leaning into the stuff about the Bucks being douchebags and everything in their own, and Jericho's leaning in. Again, it's not executing. The execution isn't good, and he's not doing good with it, but he's leaning into what we say.
They're ribbing. They're all ribbing. That's the problem. They're all ribbing, but it's like they think that they're getting away with it, and people can't see they're all ribbing now. It's so over the top. And this girls' match, folks, I apologize for anything that I ever called bad women's wrestling. Because now I've seen bad women's wrestling.
Oh, come on, not this match. This match was not as bad as the baddest.
It looked like not as bad as the baddest.
It was the least good. It was the most bad. I don't even know how to say it. But
if you are looking for believable pro wrestling athleticism in the ring, try two strippers doing mud wrestling before this. They started the CWA, the Cheerleader Wrestling Association. It was like if you took high school cheerleaders and said, mimic the things you see on a wrestling program. And again, Anna Jay does have the slightest chance of getting over to a U.S. audience and a asset in some way to the television program, so they beat her. Because the other one's from Stardom, run by formerly by the fellow that's now struck out on his own that Kenny Olivier don't like. So then after Anna is dispatched, Mira and Maria go to have a champagne toast, and Maria. And Mariah. They call the wind Mariah.
It was Mira and Mariah.
Well, Mariah blew in to have a champagne toast, and Mariah is doing a nice little stripper dance, and then suddenly Anna Jay comes back from the dead like Jason Voorhees and fucking clocks. Just goddamn. But she's mad as hell and she's not going to take it anymore. Boom, she clocks old Mariah from behind, and then Mira, and then puts a sleeper on Mariah. And then music plays, and Tony Storm hits in black and white from 1937. And Anna Jay bails out, and then music plays, and Serena Deeb comes out in dramatic fashion to the stage where The belt that Toni Storm is left laying when she went to fucking run past Sunset Boulevard to the corner of Hollywood and Vine and save the fucking day in the ring. She's left it there, and Serena gets the belt or sits over next to the belt and does her promo to the camera that she's obviously supposed to do because she was making specific points of some description. And also, they were still playing the fucking music, so you couldn't hear it. God, you could hear the music. But you couldn't hear what the fuck she was saying. So if we could get lip readers on that case, what the Marley Matlin, or is it Mariah Matlin?
Marley.
Well, if we get her on the case, what else did you see there?
You know, I was intrigued by the match. I came up with a poem. New wrestler with the big bosom and Anna Jay. Makes me wonder whatever happened to Layla Gray. It was fine for what it was. It went a while. It went a good while.
Good while.
Anna Jay, you said like Jason Voorhees, I started listening because all of a sudden she's behind her, choking her like with a maniacal face. Anna Jay has potential in the ring, and she's still young that you could call it potential. I think she even has, and I know it's not in fashion, I guess I should say, to say this, she has potential as a valet that could get heat.
Yes.
And they're not going to go down that road. And then whatever Serena Deeb...
I don't want anybody to get any heat except for back in the locker room.
And then the big Serena Deeb return that just, again, of all the weeks for the audio not to work, it's right after a pay-per-view. Shad's in the back. The guy who really owns this thing is in the back. And they're running around because of these audio issues. Daly's Place is the home to so many of the great moments I love, like the debut of Jade Cargill and what was her name? What was her name? The Queen
Brandy.
of Piss. No, the Queen of Piss. Maki Ito.
Oh, Maki Ito.
When Maki Ito sang
the Queen of Piss and shit. Yes, look it up, ladies and gentlemen.
When she sang and danced while the world champion Hikaru Shida got her ass kicked by Vicky Guerrero. that's still one of the best moments ever. And this, because it devolved into so much happening with bad audio, centered around music playing, it was just really bad. And the Toni Storm thing is lame. I get people like that she's so committed to it, but look at what she's committed to. It's one thing if it was on TCM, not on wrestling.
They had something that shot right past the shark and into uncharted waters. But we're not done yet. Unfortunately, I heard most of the next promo. And folks, I'm not ribbing you now. This is, we're coming up on, this is the last segment before the 9 o'clock hour. So the entire first hour of the program has been what we've just said. And then we're in the ring with Stokely and poor Chris Statlander.
Oh, this segment. Oh, my God.
And why is Chris Statlander standing around doing nothing? Is she hurt again? Is there a reason why that? I mean, as we've said, she's probably one of the only... Willow now. Willow has potential if she can get out of there. But Statlander, with a good training program and some confidence on promos and booking and direction, you could draw money with. And she's out there doing a poem putting over Willow Nightingale. Put Willow, put Willow, put Willow. And then Willow comes out.
And then Caprice. And Caprice was awesome, and you couldn't hear anything. You could just tell he was doing good.
Yes. No, I forgot to fucking... They had Caprice Coleman on at the announce desk doing some type of rapping, as the young folks do, about Willow. But, you know... As you mentioned, we didn't hear a lot of the announcers, and only then sometimes when we didn't want to. So it was, but it sounded like by the fast way that he was doing it, that he wasn't fucking anything up. And then Willow and Stokely did some comedy about how they didn't like each other at first. And did we see the first of this and ignore it, or did they do the first of all of this on a program other than Dynamite?
Of all of this, meaning what?
All of this, why is Stokely with Willow and Statlander?
It just kind of happened. Statlander and Willow were together, and then Stokely kind of joined the parade. Maybe they all drive in together from the island. I really don't know.
He just said they didn't like each other. I don't. Anyway, all of a sudden music plays and Mercedes moons out. And
nothing like loud, muffled CEO chants that are synthetic. They're not even real. It's just loud audio of fake CEO chants.
Well, but no, they did get a little drava of a CEO chant from the actual people, because this is Jacksonville and it's the friends and family audience, basically, right? So they're trying to work with that. They cheered Jungle Jack. Try that in fucking Chicago or goddamn anywhere other major city in the country. But still, she's just doing a heel promo and the people were booing her. And if you could believe any of this, because it's either rotten material or really bad acting, I wrote dramatic recitation of scripted dramatic scene. Willow spent half the time looking at the handheld camera while she's supposed to be venting her frustrations at Mercedes, and then she looked with the sympathetic look. She looked at Mercedes and said, "I genuinely feel so awful at what happened to you." Instead of, "Hey, you got hurt. It's a contact sport. Why are you whining in front of all these people?" And let the fucking heel start whining some more. But nevertheless, Willow is trying. But they're standing unnaturally.
That's it. That's it. That's what got me right there. They were standing next to each other, talking to each other, facing forward.
Yeah, yes.
Facing the camera, WWE style when Vince was still running things.
But Vince ain't there. You don't have to do that shit now.
Mercedes Monet's there, and her writer is there, and that's the system. That's the only thing they can do.
Alexandra Pepperday, you think she's out there blocking the scene? Say, no, stand in a V shape.
Think of all the successful talking segments in AEW history, whether it was Punk or MJF or Kingston, whoever was in them, in the ring, where guys went to different corners, where people were in the ring talking to each other and the camera wasn't just static. This was done so fakely, if that's a word, so poorly and fake, because they were standing at that weird WWE Raw angle of a few years ago.
Well, but no, I think you're wrong, because it wasn't only because of that. It was also because they did a rotten job of it anyway. If they'd have been standing on their fucking heads in 3 feet of shit, it would have still been rotten. But that's the thing, isn't this the material? I don't know what the fuck. But obviously Mercedes is now, and then Mercedes goes to leave, and Statlander grabs her by the arm like, wait a minute. And Mercedes turns around and slaps Willow, and then they all yell at each other. But are they now admitting that Mercedes is a heel and she's acting like it and speaking like it? Or was this just accidental and they're not? And the people were booing her just because she's a fucking obnoxious bitch.
If you looked at the company show-wide, the only thing you would come away with is the idea that they still are going with the idea there are no baby faces and heels. And that's the way they treat everything. This was bad. Obviously, they're teasing Statlander turning. They both blamed each other for the attacks in the previous weeks in these bad segments. Not Julia Hart, each other. It was like the AEW women's division, believe it or not, as much as I rag on it, had some potential because of Willow and Statlander and Julia Hart. And you know what? Sky Blue and Anna Jay. I'm not saying they're all ready, but there's something to be worked with there. They could, if you wanted a really serious women's division, you have things you could work with to get things going. It's almost like when WCW in 94 almost felt like it was getting back on track, and then Hogan came in.
Yeah.
And then everything was like, okay, now everything's centered around this. We'll see. You know, they're doing this whole thing around Willow injuring her in New Japan. On a New Japan show, I think in California, right?
Yeah, it's not even like, God damn it couldn't even be in Tokyo. It's in fucking Bakersfield.
And no one just spells it out. And why is Willow so upset she may have hurt her opponent in a match? What do you think happens in a wrestling match? That's the only opponent who's ever been hurt? In kayfabe. That's the only opponent the wrestler Willow Nightingale has ever hurt in there? It makes no sense. It's bad booking.
And you know what they could actually say, because it was a mistake. Was it not even something that
Right.
Mercedes did on her own anyway, rather than something Willow could say, hey, it was responsible. But show it, analyze it, drill it into people's heads, make it a bone of contention, not this goddamn vague allusion to fucking hurt feelings. What the fuck?
Yeah, not good.
Anyway, but that is at the moment, and we will come back to this, folks, when it happens, but that's the moment when Maddie, on behalf of the Buckaroo Bonsais, told Officer Barbrady that Tony Khan going to talk to Jungle Jackoff live later on tonight.
Let me stop you here. Can I ask you a question about this?
I wish you would.
We'll get to the review of the segment later and the discussion about what they did, why they did it, how they did it, and if they should have. But if you were going to do it, did it deserve a bigger lead-in announce time than 1 hour?
Oh my God.
Should this have been announced over the weekend? Like, when should they have announced that they were going to have Tony Khan finally getting what he always wanted? He gets to be an on-air character with Jack Perry. Like, when should they have announced this?
Well, one would assume that, one would hope that they knew that what they were doing this on Wednesday night, April 24th, at their pay-per-view on Sunday night, April 21st, right? One would hope that something of this magnitude, of this import, you would have it planned 3 days out, right? Wouldn't you?
Yeah.
Okay. Then on their weekly television show, Tony Khan makes matches within 7 seconds of people uttering a challenge. So after what happened on the pay-per-view Sunday night in the tag team ladder fucking fiasco, please be careful match, why would not, you could have, right after the package leading into the main event, you could have said Tony Khan has said he's going to speak to Jack Perry live and figure this whole mess out Wednesday night on Dynamite. And even if it's only the pay-per-view audience that saw that, you've got it out in the universe to where that it can be repeated. The clip out on YouTube, the tweets out, the blah, 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 and everybody talk about it and build it up for 3 fucking days. Or you can have a goddamn lackluster 1 hour of fucking bad wrestling with nobodies and fucking rotten booking with technical problems, and then tell the people that for the first time ever, Tony Khan's going to put on his big boy pants, come out here and talk to somebody tonight, live on TV. Which would you have picked to do, Brian?
Again, they didn't know they were going to have audio issues, but they went with announcing this was going to happen an hour beforehand on a show with audio issues, where you could barely hear what anyone was saying. There's a plane going overhead. You could hear that.
And see, if you couldn't hear it, then nobody could hear it. Because you can hear a goddamn flea farting through fucking satin.
Again, I'm talking about a plane. These are pretty loud, especially some of these bombers flying around here.
Well, I wonder why you've got fucking military planes flying over your head, Pablo.
I need protection.
Anyway, so should we get to the hour 2 of this fiasco? Because then they decided that for 9 o'clock, for about the next 20 or 25 minutes, they were going to have just random guys come out, one after every 2 minutes, and all wrestle until somebody won one fucking fall. So they ended up with 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. There was 8 of them finally before it was over with. And I can't remember what they called it, but I just wrote the what the fuck match, but the first guy to get a pin or submission gets an international title match against Roderick Strong at the next pay-per-view. And at least half the guys in this match were bigger stars than Roderick Strong, and it would be a step down for them to fucking have a match against Roderick Strong for this pissy-ass fake fucking belt that he won from the mascot, including their newest billion-dollar baby, Will Ostrich himself, who was sandwiched in the middle of this thing and getting the shit kicked out of him at one point by Commander. And it just went on and on. Jay White, Dante Martin, then here came Penthouse, and Kyle O'Reilly. He's just one of the boys already, and is about to get the fucking beat. Is the triumphant babyface 2 years after his goddamn near career-ending injury. He's lost twice in 3 days. Maybe it should have ended. Apparently, they're trying to put an end to it. And then they throw Willie Boy out there, and all it was everybody would do a spot, and then everybody would roll out of the ring or lay there and sell just nothing for minutes at a time so that a couple of other guys can get their shit in. And at one point, there was guys just walking around out on the floor watching the other guys in the fucking match. And then Lance Archer, and then Commander. So earlier, did you watch this at all, or were you just trying to get to the finish?
No, I watched it. I mean, there were some parts I didn't care too much, but I'm an Osprey fan, so I wanted to see him, and he was in this.
All right, well, at one point, Archer and Ostrich had come face to face, and fucking Will hits him with a couple of forearms, and Archer no-sells him, and just bam, one shot knocked him fucking out. Boom, right? So there, fuck you. Then Commander comes out, and this microscopic little fucking idiot comes out, walks the top rope, and gives Archer a Hurricane Rana through 2 tables. Because it's no DQ. So the guy that just knocked Will Archer, Lance knocked Will out with one shot, and then a midget fucking threw him 10 feet. And then Commander got in there and out-wrestled Will Ostrich. And Commander backflip splashed Kyle O'Reilly off the top rope. Looked like it fucking about killed him. And then Will stole the fucking win by hitting Commander in the back of the head with the elbow. 1, 2, 3. So Will Ostrich has to go 20 minutes through all this with all these mid-card fucking guys. And it ends up getting the shit kicked out of him by jobbers in the process, and then has to steal a win from the biggest job guy in the match, and from behind. And and then Roddy and Taven and Bennett and Wardlow came out, and Adam Cole came out walking gingerly, and they just stood there and stared at, and now that's obviously, unless somebody has gone out of their mind, and as much as I'm a fan of Roderick Strong's work, not the way he's been presented, I'm not going to advocate for him to defeat Will Ostrich. So that means that they're going to put this bogus preliminary international title on Will. And what the fuck good is that going to do? Then that just means he's got a belt, so he doesn't need to challenge for one of the other, maybe, ones that might mean something, like the world title. I don't know what the fuck is going on here.
And when's that match? Because that's the more frightening part. Are we going to get weeks of Will Ospreay having to deal with the Undisputed Kingdom?
Do they still call him that, or I thought they were the Devil's Henchmen now? Or the Devil's Kingdom?
Adam Cole could walk again, so we forgive him that he was evil and mean.
And forgive him his trespasses and those he has trespassed against, as well as any other trespassers that happen to be passing by. Well, would you like to know what the passers-by outside of Daly's place heard next? Because we didn't, unfortunately, the audio actually worked for some of this for me, but the Learning Tree Chris Jericho in the ring. And he's got the FTW title belt that he won from Hook, and he's got his nameplate on it now, the Learning Tree, Chris Jericho. But do they think that he's like doing the The Bill Murray lounge singer imitation, over-the-top version of a lounge singer is what Jericho is doing, the over-top version of a heel wrestler. All the cliches, but with a wink in his eye. I'm bask in my glory, the magnitude of me type of thing. And thank you. I know you all were supportive of me. This is just suddenly is he schizophrenic? Is he on some kind of psychotropic medication that has completely changed his public personality over the past 2 months or whatever? Or is it just that everybody realizes that he's inventing another thing for him to do and it's not believable and it's over the top, that doesn't get real heat, it gets go away heat, and that's why they're chanting, please retire at the pay-per-view? Your comments, please.
It took a while, but the AEW fans all seemingly caught up with what was really happening. Jericho's matches were terrible, his angles were terrible, his feuds were terrible, his promos were lame, his ideas were lame, and no one ever came out of it for the better except for him, because he survived. He should just trademark the bloodsucker, because that's really what it's becoming. And did it to Hook. Now they're playing into that, which I think in their eyes is the brilliant part.
Well, yeah, but that's what I was going to ask you, is it might be brilliant to play into it by this giving him a real evil edge. Fuck you people, the way you think about me now for all I've done for you and blah, blah, blah. And instead it's the over-the-top fake parade wave. Oh, yes, we've all done it together. I'm basking in the booze that I think are cheers somehow. How is that?
It's everything. It was the promo where he announced that we're sports entertainers, not wrestlers. Nothing is believable. Jericho has bad ideas, and then he poorly executes the bad ideas. And this reeks of Jericho. Copyright that, Chris, or trademark it, whatever it may be. This reeks of Jericho.
But now, you know what? The reek of Jericho instead of the list. But you would think that if you had a rotten idea and executed it poorly, that would be a double negative and it would turn out good. But apparently it doesn't.
But again, he's stuck in the Jericho vortex where his own head is sucked inside his own ass. So I think because of that, it's tough for Chris to really see what's the expression?
Well,
the sky, if not for the trees.
You can't see the forest for the trees.
That's
but
right.
He might not be able to see the wind, the way the wind is blowing for his colon, but I'll tell you what, he ought to be able to smell it. But anyway, then Big Bill came out, and they've got him do the same thing. Remember, we were talking about Big Bill last couple times we saw him talk. He had a little fire to him. He and Ricky Starks, who apparently is on the Federal Witness Protection Program now, were the tag team champions.
Again, Ricky Starks has disappeared multiple times, especially when things were going on. You can't right now say that things wouldn't be better if they kept the belts on Big Bill and Ricky Starks and just had Sting retire without the tag belts.
Yes, of course it would.
But now, not only did that not happen, they broke up the tag team. Because now he's going to be working with Jericho. We've already seen Jericho and Ricky Starks. We don't need to see that ever again.
Well, and that's the thing, is Big Bill came out and did the same point. That's the point I was making before you interrupted me. He was doing good on the talking. He was doing good on the working. We were praising him, petting him on the head. But now he came out and either he doesn't believe this shit or it's just that the material is rotten and it's not natural to him, but he's doing the equally over-the-top kiss-ass promo about how great Chris Jericho is and how he wants to sit under his learning tree instead of saying, hey, be Big Bill and say, hey, Jericho, a lot of people say different things about you, but you've made it to the top and you've stayed there. And if you put a knife in somebody's back, well, I'd like to learn the right spot to put a knife in a motherfucker's back too. So how about you teaching me some of this shit? And I'll help you out because I'm a big man, as you've noticed, and I cover the ground I walk on. That type of thing.
As you've noticed.
As you've noticed. Instead, he comes out, he's verbally blowing him. He says it's a suck-up promo, but anyway, so now Big Bill, as you mentioned, and Little Chris.
And no one gave a shit. And this in front of friends and family in Jacksonville. And 50 military free tickets for seat fillers.
Yes.
And they didn't give a shit. This Jericho stuff's getting lamer and lamer and bombing more and more in front of their fans. I can't wait to see where this goes. Because of the fan reactions.
Well, yeah, that's... I mean, then can he say, well, yes, they're supposed to boo me. Yeah, but they're not supposed to fucking stand up, turn their backs, and throw rotten tomatoes, Chris.
Yeah, again, the pay-per-view, they chanted, please retire and go home, Jericho. And the spin on the Observer site, from what I saw, was that he had great heat. He had just amazing heat. Fans were saying, go home. They weren't even saying go to his home. They were actually calling for the finish. Go home! Go home!
Wait a minute. I'm thinking about, they like to do the sing-alongs, like I'm trying to get the tune. We'd like to see you gone. Please leave for good. We'd like to not see you here or there or anywhere. Would that work?
That may work on that topic real quick. Apparently I was right. They really do chant for him. Osprey! 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 Osprey!
Oh, God damn it.
This is the time. There's never going to be a better time than now to bring it up because of the singing.
Well. So speaking of the man himself, they were in the back of the building, apparently not too far away from the front of the building in this joint. And Don Fallis is so happy that his boy Will won. But he says, why wouldn't you use the Tiger Driver 94? And, and apparently Will is not going to use that anymore because, he could have hurt Bryan Danielson. And
at the media scrum, again, you have to remember they're working during these media scrums. You may get some legit answers, but a lot of this stuff they're trying to keep kayfabe going.
Yeah.
He said and very seriously, and seemed upset that he hurt his childhood hero, Bryan Danielson. He's retiring that move. He will never do that move ever again. So now they're playing into it here without playing that audio of him saying it.
Wait, was he the same guy that dropped Kenny right on his fucking head and looked like it about killed him? And there was a controversy and Kenny's like, oh, we're professionals.
Right. And apparently Rossi Ogawa slipped him a 50. So take care of Omega.
I don't know where he slipped him a 50 or a Mickey or what he slipped him, but he dropped Kenny right on his fucking head and it looked like a fight should have erupted. But he put Danielson down safely, right on his, safer than a mama's cradle in a baby's arms or whatever the goddamn, what do you put babies in? And where are they most safe?
Well, they go in a crib. You still have to watch them. They're babies. But again, it's
when
not about...
does the cradle fall out of the tree? Why do you put a cradle in a fucking tree to begin with?
I don't know what is going on.
That always used to scare me when my mama Cornette would sing, rock-a-bye baby in the treetop. When the wind blows, the cradle will rock. If the bough breaks, the cradle will fall and down will come baby, cradle and all. Every time she'd walk me near a tree, I'd get panicked and run away. I'm like, Mama, don't stick me in a fucking tree.
Look, things used to be really fucked up, but we're talking about this here, and we were talking about this here. What were we saying?
Yes,
we were saying something.
I was saying that he retired the move where he dropped Kenny on his head, but he didn't retire it then. I guess he wanted to fuck Kenny up. Fuck you, you're paralyzed. But he in a working manner now, he put Danielson down safely, but he feels bad about it. And he has remorse coming out of his pores. Maybe that's what's wrong with Chuck Taylor.
And that's what they're building to. That's what they like to build to, is the idea that he's going to have a conflict mid-match about doing a move that he needs to do to win.
Oh, Christ.
That's what a lot of what they call now like the next level psychology. Not to even put it down, but that's what it is. It's literally like right now.
Yeah, it's
now
next
he's
level.
saying it. Right now he's saying it, and then he'll tease this for a while. And then eventually, a year down the line, he'll need it to win the title, and he won't do it.
That's next level because it's all the way up on a top shelf where nobody can reach it.
Or he will do it and cross over to the dark side.
Yeah. Or you could just kick somebody in the fucking balls when the title's on the line. But nevertheless.
But even this promo, they couldn't make sense of the fact that Osprey's a babyface. Fletcher's a heel who keeps losing, but you feel bad for him. He's there like a baby.
That's what I'm. That's what I was about to say. Is that while Don is saying, "Hey, I don't care whose neck gets broken, drop them all on their head, whatever. He's also bullying. Felcher said, well, the last person somebody needs to talk about winning tonight. Just shut up. So Will's the most popular babyface to company. He's managed by the evil heel manager who is also now bullying the fucking other guy that just almost beat the world champion who got the shit kicked out of him by his own stablemate a couple of weeks ago. Do you see why this is hard to fucking follow?
Mm-hmm.
So anyway, why can't they just admit that they fucked up at first and didn't realize they were going to need a babyface real bad and put Willie in the wrong group and do a little hand job and pull Willie back out and put him in the right place, just officially, instead of just belaboring this?
I saw Paul Orndorff fire Bobby Heenan as his manager when he wasn't even his manager because they just needed him to do that to make him a babyface.
Yes. Yeah. All righty. Well, now it's time for not the most important event, but the main event of the wrestling section of the program, Brian, for the IWGP title, the real world title around here, around this joint. The Japanese have taken over. First, it was the goddamn motorcycle industry. Now they've come for the wrestling. The new IWGP title holder, Plumber Moxley himself, against Powerhouse Hobbs in another of Moxley's delusional self-masturbatory fantasies that he can beat physically any one half of Hobbs with the other half helping him. So the new AEW World Champion took 15 minutes to beat Kyle Felcher by the skin of his teeth in a preliminary match on the program. And now the Plumber, in much less time than that, is going to basically just choke this giant muscle-bound beast out in the middle of the fucking ring.
Ridiculous.
He is so insanely up his own ass, is Plumber Moxley, that he looks in the mirror and believes I should be choking out Powerhouse Hobbs.
If there's video going around of any wrestler getting choked out in entry-level shit in competitions, they shouldn't be allowed to use this stuff in the ring.
No.
The videos are going around. So the idea, like you said, I'm sure Hobbs could probably handle himself really well in a fight, but Hobbs is going to get choked out by this guy that was getting choked out by that guy in the video?
Well, that means that the fucking Papa John's delivery guy that choked out Moxley in the amateur jiu-jitsu tournament ought to be able to make Hobbs his prison bitch, doesn't it?
I don't know if that's how it works. I don't know how prison got into this, but...
Well, it does. As soon as you go to work for Papa John's, you're going to find out, kid.
Well, I'll tell you what, Powerhouse Hobbs is in the prison of bad booking, and he never, ever, ever, no matter who's managing him, no matter who he's with, he never could leave it. There's a guy, I want to know when his contract runs out, because he needs to get as far away from AEW as he can.
He's never going to learn anything having garbage matches with a buggy whip-armed, bald-headed wino. And as long as these indie-minded goofs over there act like Moxley is somebody and treat him like somebody who knows how to lead a match or have a match at this point, you know, that because you know Hobbs not going to say, well, hey, Moxley, maybe we can do a little of this. No, it's going to be Moxley's bullshit that Moxley does. It looks like a pro football player fighting a fucking homeless guy that just stepped out of a tent.
Yeah.
And within 90 seconds, they're on the floor and over the rail and out in the arena, and it looked like two drunks having a fight in a swimming pool. And they stayed out there for almost 3 minutes while the referees and the fans stood slack-jawed and stared at him. It just didn't, because Moxley, meaning he, cannot do anything else. And he thinks it's good for some reason. And this is where they crash to the break with Tony in mid-sentence. And just suddenly, boom, and it's picture in picture.
Shivani never sounded better.
It was actually an acne commercial, I think. We were clearing blemishes off the screen. So then they came back, and that's Moxley put Hobbs in the corner. You know where they get up on the turnbuckles, they got the guy trapped in the corner, and sometimes the babyface will do the 10 punches, and the people will count along or whatever. That position, right? Moxley punched him 48 times. The last 20 or so, he was just swinging both fists over the top of Hobbs's head without even worrying about whether they were near contact or not.
Death Jitsu.
That must be it. It must be the wind generated from the goddamn stank of his underarms when he flails his arms about that disables his goddamn opponents. And then he fucking gave Hobbs, he punches him in the corner 48 times, as I mentioned, about the last half or so, making no contact whatsoever. And then he double-arm DDTs him, his finish, and gets a 2 count. And then he just rolled over the top of him, put the choke on him, and choked him out, and the referee stopped it. That's what I had to say about that match.
And we get the big challenge. So Moxley could beat another talented guy who's getting held down. Moxley versus Takeshita.
Oh, was that who he was saying was a fucking dead man?
Takeshita is challenging Moxley now.
Okay, well, because when he was Moxley, meaning he was looking at the camera and screaming, but you couldn't hear it. The only thing I heard was fucking dead man. And I thought, well, yeah, but you're an unprofessional fucking drunk, so there's that to look forward to. Ay. Hold on a second. Wait a minute. Wait a second. I'm getting some breaking news. We got breaking news in this program, Brian. We can't go any further without revealing the breaking news. Next week on Dynamite, the return of Kenny Olivier. Old Twinkle Toes is back, baby.
In his hometown, right?
Well, do they claim him?
Where is it? Is it Winnipeg?
Is there a sign? Is there a sign saying birthplace of or don't come back?
Do I hear your gardeners or my gardeners? Or someone's gardeners?
I don't have any gardeners here.
That you know of?
Earl Stanley's stopping by later on, but otherwise I have...
So it's interesting. Obviously, we've seen Kenny starring recently on video game streams where he's just... what's the expression? Drinking tea? Tossing tea?
Spilling the tea.
He's
drinking tea.
He's drinking tea. Served by Michael Nakazawa, funny enough.
He's slurping the tea.
So in the middle of all that now, they announce, not that he's appearing, they said Kenny Omega returns.
Well, we are understanding that, that he's still diverted with his diverticulitis and is still a long time away from a wrestling return. So are they trying to use his imminent star power, his magnificent ratings record to try to draw a rating off of his name? He's going to come out and give a rah-rah speech. Is he going to come down and dress out? Come out and dress down. Or is he going to berate or chastise his former buddies for their behavior, possibly, you wonder?
I think that's what it is. I think hometown crowd, he'll be there. I think you hope it'll pop a number, but it's not going to really do it when the announcement is, that doesn't really help. It was just on the bottom of the screen that they showed it. But I do think if he is going to get surgery for diverticulitis and definitely be out for a while, and he can take some sort of bump, what better way to solidify?
If you needed surgery because your intestines might explode, are you going to take a bump?
Well, he loves the Young Bucks. They're friends in real life, but they could, of course, attack him with Jungle Jack and Okada.
Hey, this may be their fucking opportunity to get back at him for what he vaguely said about potentially not being mad at CM Punk. You moved. Yes, his intestines are splayed all over the canvas.
Yeah, that's the funny thing. The guy who this whole angle is based around is going to be the one guy whose name they won't mention ever. But that's that's the news. Kenny Omega's big return next week, whatever that constitutes.
It's good to see Kenny's back, especially after seeing his front. But anyway, we move on now to the main event of the evening that everybody was talking about, that Brian, I don't know if we called this specifically with Tony and AEW. We've talked about the subject. We talked about it with Dixie Carter and TNA, and this is not a urban legend. It's a rule of thumb practically in the wrestling business down through history, and small companies and large, and in outlaw situations all across the width and breadth of the great country of ours. If you found a fucking angel, a backer, a money mark, an investor, whatever term that you wanted to use, that was not motivated by business, but more of the love of the game and or being involved in it, and or some of the people that might be involved in it. When they start losing patience or things look bad, come up with an angle to put them on TV. Has this not happened umpteen times over the years?
Well, I'll say two things. One, sadly, my first thought as this was happening was Dixie Carter. Fair or not, that was my thought. Secondly, I called this a few years ago. Tony's going to make himself an on-air character. That's what he really wants. I also said he'll end up sleeping with talent, but we'll see.
Now, I see, I couldn't take that leap with you. I was with everything else. I couldn't take that leap.
But he made himself an on-air character. That is what he has wanted to do, and they're trying to do it to launch this. When the NWO happened, Hall and Nash were pretty big. I mean, they were big names, even without having to use their names. It changed business right away when they arrived. And then they added Hogan, an established name, whose turn was a massive deal.
And then they added Bischoff when Vince got over as a heel.
And Bischoff wanted to be on TV more as a character and have fun with his friends or the guys he wanted to hang out with.
And he's very good at it. We can't say he's not.
Bischoff is an exceptional on-air performer, I think. But the point is, you can't even compare this to Bischoff. Bischoff was aligned with a stable that was over.
But that's what I'm. We don't have Kevin Nash. We don't have Scott Hall. We don't have Eric Bischoff. We don't have Hulk Hogan. We got Tony Khan, the Buckaroos, O'Cody, and Jungle Jackoff. And remember what I said at the top about this was the worst time to present an amateur production of whether it be the amateur booking or amateur talent or amateur production, whatever. But can you imagine Tony Schiavone standing there in the ring, introduces the man of the hour, old Jungle Jack, and all 800 fans in the crowd sing "Cry Me a River" because they're the hometown fans. But he calls out Tony Khan and Tony wanders out. Can you imagine? Again, I know this is pie in the sky dreaming, but if they had the average viewer, the average fan, somebody that might want to bump these numbers up any at all from where they've been forever. They're used to seeing Vince McMahon or Eric Bischoff or Triple H. Here comes the guy that runs the thing. And then here comes Rick Moranis' stunt double. And they're saying, this is the guy that runs the thing?
That's not fair. He looked like Rick Moranis' stunt double when he still had his glasses and he was still getting haircuts and he was still trying to look neat and proper. When he got involved with the wrestling project, all of a sudden, once things got going and he was on the road all the time with the wrestlers, the hair started growing. He doesn't shave. He looked unkempt. His hair was a mess. He had no presence. Yeah.
Is he smiling or grimacing, or is he constipated?
All of that. And more.
He's uneasy. He's got irritable bowels. He looks like his skin is literally crawling. And Jungle Jack, then, once he gets Tony in the ring after he's called him out, he turns his back on Tony and starts telling his story to the handheld camera. And then it's more shit about how they've changed the world. They've changed the world. Yes, it used to not have a bad wrestling program on it.
But it looks at him, Steve Simpson and Sean Simpson changed the world.
Yeah, except no, the Simpson boys were significantly taller.
Okay.
than Jungle Boy.
Fair enough.
And then he's giving Tony the babyface speech, and he swears to Tony that the only thing that he's ever wanted is what's best for AEW. And Tony, it claps then. He's clapping, and he looks touched. And can you see even if they're supposed to be keeping tension and storyline only, and they're all best friends, can you see a similar situation where a top guy that has just interfered and cost the World Tag Team title to go to the fucking heels, and the company head, whether it be the Bischoff or the Vince or the Triple H or whatever, or the Nick Aldis or Adam Pearce, having a goddamn confrontation, and when the fucking guy who healed is pitching his case, the authority figure is applauding what he says and clapping for him and smiling?
You know what? I've always had a problem with you calling Kenny Omega Harpo, because I love the Marx Brothers. I know their work really well. And that's why I think I could say this was a Harpo Marx performance. He said nothing. He reacted with his face, his eyebrows, his hands. All he needed was a horn. But he's out there. He's just like, he's a character. When you watch him, he's just constantly in motion and twitching and moving and reacting in both positive and negative ways to the same thing being said, because his head is constantly going. And I guess we're going to be seeing more of this.
Well, then it finally, and old Jack says, please shake my hand and reinstate me so we can change the world together. And Tony smiles and nods and gives the fans the thumbs up and shakes Jungle Boy's hand and gives him the Tony Khan hug. And that's when old Jack opens his eyes and smiles ominously at the camera, like I've suckered him. And then Jack raises Tony's hand and lets him get some cheers from the crowd, and then turns around. And with the hand, he's got the microphone in, so it would have made some noise if it actually had worked, I guess. But he gives him a gut shot, a punch to the stomach. Whereupon Tony takes 1 second to react at all, and then takes a flat back bump. And somebody on Twitter said, well, here's what happened. Tony's head was so far up his own ass that the punch to the gut knocked him out. And that's what it looked like.
He took a flat back bump, he landed, knocked out, and then all of a sudden he woke up and grabbed his stomach and rolled over.
Yes. And then exposed his ass to the world. And then as he's laying there, then here comes the Buckaroos and O'Cody acting like, oh, what the fuck has happened here? What have you done? And they're telling Jack, get back, stay away from him. And they help Tony up. And of course they tease. When Maddie and Nikki help him up, they tease giving him their shitty little double knee lift, but they help him up to his feet. And then Matt scoops him up like a sack of flour, and they give him the safest ever Meltzer driver. Olaf, the one brother that does the flip, what's his name? Nicky. His ass takes some punishment on that move. But Maddie dropped Tony. His head wasn't 6 inches from the ring. But then they dropped him, and they all stood up and stood there and glorified while the referees checked on Tony. And the announcers were laying out like it'd just been the Kennedy assassination. Either that or their microphones had completely gone out. We don't know. And then once the heels wander around and then leave, as soon as they've gone through the entranceway, through the same entranceway, 5 seconds later comes every fucking job guy and underneath wrestler on the fucking card, followed by Shad Khan himself, who I saw on again on Twitter. Somebody had a nice fucking picture of him looking all concerned, but the caption was, "Give him another one. Where's my money? Fuck the game.
Where's my money? Where's my money, Tony?"
But so then, and I'll let you begin commenting, but then they were off the air, by the way, exactly at 10 o'clock because they had some kind of important game this week and couldn't futz with their numbers. But after the thing went off the air, there's footage on Twitter that a couple of stagehand looking guys helped Tony up to his feet and throw one arm over each of their shoulders. And Tony shuffles out under his own power after taking the dreaded gut punch from Ox Baker Perry and the Meltzer driver from the fucking Buckaroos, and they can't even pop for a stretcher for him. Your thoughts?
I didn't see any of that post-match stuff, so I can't comment on it. But again, Tony's out there. He just doesn't have any presence on camera. The other thing is, we know who Tony is. And Tony's been shown just a tiny little bit lately with some of these elite segments. And he's made announcements in the past. But Tony's not really like someone the audience is invested. I shouldn't say that.
For the people watching this show, they know who Tony is and they like him. For the people watching religiously. But again, they're narrow casting for anybody they might get besides the people they already got. They're the ones saying, this fucking weasel is running this thing and these children are dropping him on his head. What the fuck is going on here?
And when you see Tony in there with them, Okada has some size. Tony was just as big as Jack Perry and the Bucks, and they all look ridiculous. That's the thing. The NWO looked like badasses, looked like
intimidating.
Adults. Even DX in their own way. But the Bucks and Jack Perry, it's like the two guys that Punk kicked the shit out of and the guy that Punk was about to kick the shit out of. And Okada. And Okada's like a sore thumb.
He didn't have the chance to kick the shit out of him.
And Okada's like he's like Lurch behind them. Because what's his role? His role is, you're in the role of what Cody would have been. What is this role that he has with the Elite?
The role is he rolls up to the bank every week for almost nothing. That's what his role is.
Tony's made limited appearances. Shad Khan's never made an appearance. Or if he has, it's nothing of note and nothing recent. So the big thing at the end where he shows up, the fans aren't even going to really know what that is.
Well, he was only on the air for 15 seconds maybe or whatever anyway.
And we called that. And by the way, we said he was going to come back and then he was going to form his stable of constables.
And who is going to be the first constable that he ought to call the cops and say, my son has embezzled $150 million from me. But that's...
Why wouldn't the first thing be, okay, fire them? Thanks, guys. I just want to say, I've never felt my life was in more danger, except one other time. But this time it was much more... Actually, I got hurt.
Yeah. Well,
they fired Punk for making him feel like this for pushing a monitor or whatever. What about the Bucks and Jack Perry?
Well, yes. And I mean, even in a working way, would you be more trepidatious about your future when a guy's fucking yelling at you that he quits because the place is a fucking joke, or when some fucking guy the same size as you that might or might not be able to fucking hold you in the right place is fucking picking you upside down and going to drop you on your head? I think I'd be more nervous in that position.
If Tony Khan was going to do something physical on this show, and I think it was always an inevitable thing. Again, it's for Jack Perry and the Young Bucks. Young Bucks are dead on arrival right now, and they're trying everything they can. Jack Perry, let's see how long it lasts. Again, he's a tiny guy. And they're going to be the badass heel faction in a company filled with heel factions?
Well, but besides that, like you said, it was going to happen eventually because this is Tony's dream. It's another part of his dream. Now, I might actually get to take a bump in the ring and the fans will be worried about me. Wow, that'll be cool. And it'll all be part of this big angle. This isn't Bill Watts coming out of retirement for the last Stampede. I'm sorry to tell you. Theoretically, this should have been a fucking major moment, and it would have been if they'd have built something and then used talent properly and fucking putting their hands on a goddamn owner of the company. But instead, it's with these fucking children that nobody cares about to begin with. It was executed in such a rotten way because Tony can't do anything physical. And nobody gives a shit. Except the reason why this was such a hot topic and everybody was talking about it is because it looks so desperate now. And everybody was making fun of it. And everyone's like, what the fuck is going on here? I don't know if that's good publicity for of the pulling the trigger on theoretically the biggest angle that you could fucking do. Laying out the boss.
And now someone has to get even on behalf of the boss. And you can't just fire the heels because then no one can get even, I guess. And who could beat up the Young Bucks and Jack Perry there? I have no idea. If they drag FTR back into this, I don't think it works.
How many more times do they have to be beaten? You know, at this point, just wipe your feet on them and be done with it.
And that's the other thing. Are we going to get a running, like Mr. McMahon type thing where it's Tony all over the show now? And this is the beginning of that? Or is this just, let's use me as a thing to hopefully get people talking?
Well, I mean, obviously, he doesn't need to do anything physical.
And by the way, and let me just bring up to you, because I don't know if you'd be aware of this, the NFL draft is today as we are recording, and NFL Films, I believe, announced they were doing a documentary. They were following Tony Khan with a camera.
Okay, well, that's perfect. That's why they did. It's not about fucking business. It's about, well, this is perfect timing for Tony to be able to take a big old wrestling move from his action figures, and it can be captured on NFL Films documentary fucking footage. Well, there you go. Whether it was his idea or whether they put him up to it, they know that it has warmed Tony's cockles to be able to do this at this time. But is he supposed to go to the NFL draft?
I don't know if he goes there or if they sit in the conference room and just call it in.
Well, if he's going to be being documented by the documentary people, shouldn't he have some kind of goddamn overnight hospital stay? Shouldn't he have had a neck brace on? Shouldn't he be... Hey, I did the neck brace thing on fucking Regis and Kathy Lee. The least he can do is for the NFL draft. There's probably fewer people watching that now than Regis and Kathy Lee from 30 years ago.
I'm on the Jacksonville Jaguars website, which is an official NFL website. They control all the websites for the teams.
Oh, I thought you meant the NFL was in control of all the websites already. I was going to check mine.
This is by Grant Gordon. Jaguars Tony Khan takes punch and pile driver on AEW Dynamite show. Tony Khan's status for the Jacksonville Jaguars 2024 NFL draft obligations could be questionable. Khan, the Jags' chief football strategy officer, and the founder, owner, and booker of All Elite Wrestling, took a punch to the gut and a Meltzer driver, pile driver, Wednesday Night Live on AEW Dynamite from Daly's Place in Jacksonville, Florida. Shad Khan, Tony's father, and owner of the Jaguars, took to the ring to check on his son in the aftermath of the drama. It's all part of an angle, professional wrestling storyline, of course, but it was shocking nonetheless, as Tony Khan has never been physically involved in AEW to that extent, and his father's appearance added more realism to the stunning end of the show.
It would have been hard to take any realism away.
Many people who know Tony Khan said it's not surprising to hear that Tony did a few bumps. He's been known to do bumps.
Wait, no. Oh, back up.
I'm making that up. I'm making that one up. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. All in the name of fun, ladies and gentlemen.
Took a few bumps. Maybe.
It began with the returning Jack Perry, son of the late actor Luke Perry, and Tony Khan in the ring together, mending fences after Perry's very real suspension had been lifted. Perry had made his AEW return this past weekend after he had been absent following a legitimate backstage altercation with wrestler CM Punk,
where he got goozled,
which led to the latter's dismissal from the company. Blurring the lines between storyline and reality once again on Wednesday, Perry's embrace with Khan was all for show, as he delivered a punch with a microphone to Khan's breadbasket, felling his boss in the process. It's written like it's in PWI in 1975. Thereafter, the Young Bucks tag team, brothers Matt and Nick, who are executive vice presidents within the company, along with being on-screen talent, and top single star Kazuchika Okada, entered the fray and scolded Perry. Once more, it was only a ruse, as Matt scooped up Khan and held him in position for younger sibling Nick to take to the top rope, fly off into a front flip, and come down to spike the helpless Khan.
The helpless Khan.
As could be expected, Khan was protected well in the maneuver by the Bucks, revered workers within the business for nearly 2 decades.
Yeah, protected well. My Aunt Lola could have taken that bump.
What unfolds next could come Saturday on AEW's weekly Collision and Rampage offerings. That's also day 3 of the NFL Draft, which kicks off Thursday from Detroit with round 1. The Jaguars currently hold the number 17 overall pick. Whether head coach Doug Peterson and general manager Trent Balk, if that is indeed his name, can count on Tony Khan recovering from the heinous attack by Perry and the Young Bucks on Wednesday in Duval remains to be seen. So they're now doing...
What is Tony's title there in the football team? He's the chief...
Strategy officer.
Strategy. So does he come up with like goddamn okay on 2, forward pass, drop back and punt, whatever? I thought that was the coach's job. What strategies is he implementing?
You know, it's like when people hire their daughters and make them chief marketing officer or something.
Well, I'm
chief brand officer.
I'm just trying to ask a simple question. I wonder what strategies that Tony is coming up with that he's passing on to the football team.
And when all of his great strategies are obviously going to wrestling, but that's how it's been covered by the NFL. The big news, he's taken a punch and a pile driver from the dastardly heels.
A punch and a pile driver. Punch and pie. Punch and pie.
The question's going to be, and we're going to travel through time momentarily, Jim, the question's going to be the ratings because, again, if you tuned in wanting to see what was going to happen, not knowing anything, the audio was really bad. If you stayed through that, there were things that were on the screen that you may not have been able to hear, like Kenny Omega returning. But the Bucks thing was announced an hour before it happened, or the Bucks and Jack Perry, Tony Khan thing. So we don't know how many people would have been driven to the show. Now, again, they had a hard out because of the NFL, not the NFL, the NHL, hockey. So you got to think people were ready. Whoever wanted to see that game may have been sitting there ready. The question's going to be how they did in that last quarter, which is traditionally the worst quarter of every show.
Well, at least they finished on time. But that's the problem, is that I think now, you know, they've figured, okay, Tony will have more faith in this if he's in it, or if it's, you know, he had a part in it and we know he wants to take a bump. And that because nobody can possibly have thought that this would be good with the people involved and the way that it was executed. It's just purposely to give Tony another thrill and get these guys more indemnity to continue not to produce any kind of numbers. Well, Tony can't cut us. He's in the thing. He was part of it.
What do you think will be next? Do you think they're going to talk him into the ring? Come on, Tony, you got to do it. Come on, Tony. Only you could do it. Come on, you have to.
I don't think that's going to happen until after the next rights deal goes down. Then, if it doesn't go the way that it's supposed to go, we might see Tony Khan as an active wrestler.
They have a new world champion. Is anyone talking about that at all?
No. Why the fuck would they talk about that?
Well, we will see what happens, and I guess more than anything, we'll see how much this overwhelms the show, and we'll see what the audience reaction is. Jim? I slipped. That didn't sound good either. Let's travel through time
And then are we going to, after we travel through time, are we going to travel back to come right back where we started from so that we can continue what we were doing and where we were going till we get there?
No, we're not going to go back to where we started from. We're going to travel back after we go forward. We're going to travel back to right after right here.
Okay. Then I won't pack extra socks.
All right, that sounds good. I'm not even going to wear socks. I like my flip-flops. Let's travel through time and talk about these ratings for this banner episode of AEW Dynamite. All right, we are here in the pleasant future. It's ratings time, everyone's favorite weekly game show.
I've right here got my pads, my paper, my pen, ready to write these numbers down. Very important numbers for the big after the pay-per-view extravaganza television program that nobody could hear and it was painful to watch.
Now, a few notes before we give these ratings. Obviously, strong competition and...
What? Are they still doing the Final Four?
Well, the West Coast was live. So there was...
Well, are they usually dead? What's the matter with the people on the West Coast?
Well, I guess usually they would get it at 8 p.m. Pacific, not 8 p.m. Eastern Standard.
Well, why'd they get it at a different time this week?
I think because of the hockey game, if I had to guess. Maybe.
Oh, because they wanted the hockey game in a time slot where people out there would watch, unlike this program.
That's right, and according to apparently what Dave Meltzer wrote, they were down 8% due. There's an 8% due specifically to the West Coast being live.
So 8%, that means we add 8% onto this number to make them even. That's what Dave is. Somebody on Twitter said Dave Meltzer would like to be able to kiss AEW on the mouth.
Well, we don't know for sure if he has or has not done that before. But Jim, AEW Dynamite, Wednesday, April 24th, Jacksonville, Florida, 8 to 10 p.m. sharp. On average, was watched by 683,000 viewers.
Oh!
It is the lowest rating for a Dynamite ever, excluding preemptions. Excluding when it didn't air.
Excluding when it did not air. This is the worst. It's the least good it's ever done. Oh, Mike, what was last week? 700 and something thousand? We said, oh shit, the bottom's falling out.
Last week was a disaster too, 762. This is 18% off that.
So they were down 10% even without the people in fucking Oregon, Washington, and California. And for anybody that happens to be in Montana or wherever the fuck that is in time zone category.
Well, let's see how they came in. These were compiled by WrestleNomics. 8 to 8:15 p.m., quarter one. The Elite and Jack Perry... It says Angle. Was that just when they arrived?
They walked out of the SUV and said shit. So
the Elite and Jack Perry arrive with bad audio. The Trent Beretta, Orange Cassidy, Chuck Taylor live promo and Angle. John Moxley's muted backstage promo. Followed by the beginning of Swerve Strickland versus Kyle Fletcher. 792,000 viewers.
Oh, Jesus Christ, on a Ritz cracker.
316,000 in the key demo.
That's the lowest they've ever stood. What happened to the Big Bang? Was it the big bust this week? Did they preempt the bangers?
Maybe on the West Coast, people are not watching the Big Bang Theory live. Was it even one of the shows that, again, if this aired live there, that means their schedule on the West Coast may have been a little bit differently. Correct?
Does that account for 200,000 fucking people? 150,000 people that they normally more start this? Oh.
And again, we always talk about the fact that whatever they start with, that's not the real number because that's a minute of the Big Bang Theory. This is without that minute, apparently, for some people. But quarter two, 8:15, 8:30 p.m., the continuation of Strickland versus Fletcher with picture-in-picture ads, the Thunder Rosa Deonna Purrazzo backstage angle, and an ad break, 716,000 viewers.
Ooh, okay, so 76,000. 76,000 people said, we can't do this anymore.
Well, we go into quarter 3, 8:30 to 8:45 p.m. Mina Shirakawa versus Anna Jay with picture-in-picture, and the post-match with Mariah May and Toni Storm. 709,000 viewers.
That's a miracle that they only lost 7,000.
Well, we then go to 8:45 to 9 p.m., quarter 4. Serena Deeb's muted ramp promo, an ad break, the Willow Nightingale celebration with Mercedes Moné, the Jack Perry and Matt Jackson backstage promo, I guess that's when they went to Tony's locker room, 694,000 viewers.
And again, they're holding up quite well for the content that they're providing. But now they're down, 98,000 people in 1 hour from the lowest start ever.
Well, we now go to the big 9 o'clock hour, 9 to 9:15 p.m., quarter 5. The AEW International Title #1 Contendership Gauntlet match with picture-in-picture twice. 629,000 viewers.
Oh. So they lost another 65,000 people at the top of the hour, and that's where the Will Osprey bonus baby signing is placed in this direct. So everybody is losing numbers that it has cost him any amount of money.
We then go to quarter 6, 9:15 to 9:30 p.m., the continuation of the Gauntlet match, the post-match with Will Osprey and Roderick Strong, an ad break, and that Chris Jericho Big Bill live promo.
Ooh.
659,000 viewers.
Well, to what do you attribute 30,000 people coming to the finish of the big match?
I think it's the match and whoever was in it, what was happening, because I think the Jericho thing would have more of an effect on the next quarter based on
afterwards.
Where it is. Yeah.
Yes. So what was that quarter 7, Brian?
Quarter 7, no overrun this week. Quarter 7, 9:30 to 9:45 p.m. The Osprey Don Callis, Kyle Fletcher backstage angle, an ad break, and the beginning of Moxley versus Hobbs with picture-in-picture. 607,000 viewers.
Oh. So that's the Jericho effect.
That's the Jericho effect. Kills numbers every time.
But drum roll, please, everybody. Everybody's been waiting with bated breath. The guys that are going to come back and change the world and save us all, and Tony Khan's big debut on television.
We now go to the final quarter, quarter 8, 9:45 to 10 p.m. I'll also give the key demo number here. The continuation of Moxley versus Hobbs. The post-match, Renee Paquette's interview with Katsuyori Shibata. The backstage, it says backstage angle. There was no angle, it was an interview. And finally, the Jack Perry, Tony Khan Elite angle and not hospitalization. He walked out. I just saw the video before you mentioned.
Yeah.
657,000 viewers and 330 in the key demo. That is the high point of the show.
Holy crapola. So they actually got 50,000 people to tune in to this thing to see Tony get dropped on his head.
Or there were people waiting for the hockey game. Again, it's a different kind of night because of that and how it screws things up. But there are people who are tuning into that channel just waiting for the game.
But there's still, even if you account for the fact that, yes, some people had to tune in expecting the game, they're still down for their big main event and for their big angle, 135,000 people from where they started, which was the lowest ever. So what's the 8% on top of this? What if we're...
And again, it's far below the trend line. So even with the 8%, that's, I think, based on what I'm seeing here, it would still be below the trend line.
What's 8% of... If they'd have done another 79,000 people from where they started, that would be 10%, and that'd still only put them at 850,000 or so. And that was the highest rated quarter, not the whole fucking show. So I don't, poor Uncle Dave. Anyway, I will say this now. This is what's happening. 5 years ago, what was the reason for AEW? Vince McMahon was running the evil empire. He was a heel owner. He had been for years, and people knew that he really did mistreat their favorite wrestlers and fire them and not make them do stupid things, not give them respect. And they didn't like the creative. And they were mad at the company because they were mad at the guy that they were mad at. And then along comes Tony Khan. And he's pro wrestler and pro fan and for the sport and blah, blah, blah. And it's all going to be great. But then 5 years later, not only has the WWE completely eradicated Vince McMahon, and they're changing his style of booking, and they're making stars, and the company is babyface, and Triple H is a hero to people. And they love the company now because the evil Machiavellian fucking McMahon is out of there. But meanwhile, over here, despite what you want to say about the booking or the talent or anything else, Tony Khan has got himself into a situation where his two EVPs that work for him are douchebag heels being assholes to everybody and fucking people around, sometimes while he sits there next to him and nods and smiles. And then a guy that was suspended for some reason that we kind of sort of found out about a week or two ago, but not really because they couldn't tell us and they couldn't mention the other guy's name. But he comes back and screws the rightful winners of the tag team title out of the goddamn thing and gives it to the douchebag EVPs. But yet when this fucking prick asks the boss to come out and just says, reinstate me and we'll change the world together, the boss hugs him and does everything but kisses him. And so how is Tony, and if these guys are heels and they're in on the fucking office and Tony's not doing anything about it, then why am I as a viewer supposed to give a fuck what happens to this guy or his company? Does that not make sense to what I'm saying to you?
That makes sense. What AEW does doesn't make sense, and they keep doubling down on all the stupid things, and they keep listening to the people that say, oh, they're doing great. The complaints are invalid. They were number 3 on cable. Everything's fine.
They've reversed their situation. The people love the WWE office now, and the fucking AEW is a bunch of goddamn heels screwing people around.
And word's gotten around. The chaos and the childishness and the drama that was always there, it all finally got out and people saw what a shit show it was. And they decided to counter that by putting on the worst television shows they've ever done, which their most hardcore fans say are great. They can't acknowledge the bad shit's bad.
Wait a minute, what do they say they are?
Great.
I just didn't want to disappoint anybody. Keep going.
And that's really it. I mean, we always say it. I always say it. It's only going to get worse. It's only going to get worse from here. There's nothing that's shown you the booking is going to get better. There isn't an influx of talent that could be hired to change things. You have people there with talent who you could do things with if there was a booker. And if the booking in one segment had anything to do with the rest of the show. They have an overrun they do, except for this week. They have an overrun they do that drives people away. No one ever comes back for it. Whatever, everything, what is working? Swerve Strickland was hotter 2 months ago and a month ago, and it got cooler and cooler, and now he's the champion. It doesn't matter. Moxley's on there with another championship now. Osprey's getting over. Naturally, he's in a heel stable. The Bucks are not over.
And he's about to win a mid-card belt or a preliminary belt.
The Bucks aren't over, and Jack Perry's only over because CM Punk slapped him around. And they're going to go with this pro wrestling guerrilla amateur hour type thing where this is the lead heel stable. Okada, Jungle Boy, and the Young Bucks. Horrible. This promotion is out of hand. They're horrible right now. That doesn't mean Will Osprey won't have a good match, but that means that good match does nothing to negate all the other shit. That's the point.
Well, and don't forget now, if Tony Khan recovers from this brutal beating, he's going to have to do something about this, because if he fired the biggest star they've ever had because he yelled at him because he was scared for his life when that happened, then by the logic he has presented on his own television program, what's he going to do to these motherfuckers? Huh?
By the way, a tweet I just saw, the mayor of London has tweeted out something.
London, England, or London, Ontario?
London, England, Sadiq Khan, the mayor of London, is an election next week. London is already the sporting capital of the world. If I'm re-elected next Thursday, we'll go even further. We'll look to bring in WrestleMania, Super Bowl, and the NBA to London, and put together another bid for the 2040 Olympics. He did say we'll have AEW at Wembley.
Holy shit. Well, and being Tony's father and everything, and still saying he's going to bring WrestleMania to London.
No, this is a different Khan. This is not a member of the family.
You said Shad Khan.
I said Sadiq Khan.
I thought that was his full given name, and Shad was just a nickname.
Is Shad going to start cutting promos?
He probably already has, as soon as he got back to the locker room. You fucking idiot. What the fuck are you thinking?
Where's my checkbook?
Fucking money?
Where's the checkbook? Give me the checkbook. You're out of the will. But again, big week coming off the pay-per-view that people were raving about the matches on. Coming off, they knew they had to do something on this show, and they announced stuff in the middle of the show, even though they had bad audio. It's another disaster week for AEW, despite how some of the people who love AEW want to spin it. It's another disaster week for AEW.
Well, and again, I'm saying that they're shooting themselves in the foot, because not only are they presenting an amateurish production on several different levels when the other company is looking bigger and bolder and brighter and more expensive than it ever has. And at the same time, they're doing this thing with Tony where they're going to turn even their fans against the company, because they're going to make him, or he's going to make himself, just by exposing himself on television, such a clueless putz that he deserves what he gets. They were in his corner and all these guys' corners when they were fighting the big evil corporation, and they were the wrestlers all in. We're going to do it ourselves. That was the spirit of the thing. Now this guy's a fucking mark. He's bungled all his shit. Half the people are hurt. Everybody dislikes everybody else. The booking is shite, and the fucking office is now heels. What the...
Well, the other thing, too, is, and I'll end with this, and they've done this before with different things, with different situations, but if you knew you were going to do this big angle, you didn't know that you're going to have audio issues, but you knew you were going to have these viewership issues because of the time zone and the game, there'd be some sort of hit. You knew that. Why do this angle on this show if that's the case? If you know you're going to have, more than likely, if everything goes well, a smaller audience than usual, why do the angle on this episode?
You know what? How often have we heard that Shad Khan was actually in the building at the show? Maybe he was at Wembley, right? Maybe. Did we hear that?
It's been a while since we've heard he's at show. He's been at various shows. Jacksonville, I guess, is the place we've maybe heard about it the most, because
then also they're there for the big NFL draft where he makes some of his real money so that he can give it to Tony. Maybe they came up with this to pitch it to Tony. And look, your dad will be here. He can see you take this bump. Because that's all it is. They're just feeding Tony's fantasies now to stay in the position they're in that they don't deserve, and or to continue to get him to whip out his wallet, and to ignore the fact that the numbers are going down when he involves the people that make the numbers go down. So, but you can take a bump in front of your dad. It'll be so cool.
I don't know if I would call that a bump. Or, well, he did take a bump. I guess it was just the wrong bump. Yeah. I mean,
I think that's where we are now.
all kidding aside, have the comparisons to Dixie Carter ever been more apropos?
No, but Dixie was better on television. And until you actually, talked to her for a little while, she was a very pretty lady. But she wasn't, no, she was a talented amateur on television. Tony is awkward in every way and unfit for broadcast. And it makes the company look like a fucking loony bin that would be the guy in charge of this. And that anybody would suggest to him that he be on television, much less, more importantly, not try to talk him out of it at all costs, indicates that they're fucking taking him for a ride. Because there should have been people going, Tony, you can't do this. Tony, you're not a television personality. Tony, do not. You're not athletic. Whatever the fuck he's not. And there was many of those. Somebody should have been saying that. But instead, Tony, you can take the Meltzer driver. Dave will give it 5 stars. Why else would you do this? This is insanity.
We saw it in the early days of AEW. I mean, it's rather benign, but remember there was a thing after the show with Cody. I remember Aubrey Edwards going crazy, ridiculously over the top, where Tony gave Sean Spears a stunner.
Yes,
and it was
that was in the dark.
Well, that was in front of the fans. It wasn't on TV.
But it wasn't on TV, at least. It was just, It
was the origins of this. Get him out there. Let him feel the fans. Let them pop for him. Everyone make him look good. It was the start of this. And now we have Tony seemingly as a character on the show, but... All right, well, those are the ratings. Let's go back to the other nonsense. Time travel begins right now.